On today's episode of You Asked, can an old movie really be in Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos? Is built-in TV audio ever going to get better? What to do with an old TV? And should you disable picture processing before the signal gets to your TV? Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison, and this is You Asked, the show where I answer questions you asked in hopes that I can help you and others with similar tech questions. If you've got a question for me, please email it to youasked@digitaltrends.com, and we'll see if your question gets picked to be answered on the show. Let's start with an email from Mark Noda, who writes, I'm currently watching the 1981 movie Superman 2 on my Hisense U7G with a Vizio M-Series soundbar through my Roku Ultra. It says it's in Dolby Vision and Atmos. Can a 1980s movie be in Dolby Vision and Atmos? The answer is yes, Mark, it can. Older films can have their video and audio remastered and be presented in Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. However, just because a remastering process is done doesn't mean it is necessarily good, or that it is as effective as more recent content that gets remastered. From what I understand, film negatives allow for an average of about 13 stops of dynamic range. SDR TV allows for about 6 stops of dynamic range on average, and the film prints that get played in theaters had similar limitations. Today, HDR allows for about triple the dynamic range of SDR, so there is plenty of opportunity to take the original film and create a new high dynamic range master from it. And if the creators choose to use Dolby Vision to deliver that HDR, then they could be pretty meticulous about how the final HDR master of that film looked. Of course, one could also just phone it in and make something that is only marginally better than the original presentation. It really depends on the quality of the work that's done, which is dependent on budget usually. But yeah, the original film negatives were capable of holding a higher dynamic range than either the theater print or the video copy were able to show us. Now that we have HDR TVs and HDR delivery mechanisms, we can remaster old content captured on film and present it in HDR. Now, it's a similar yet slightly more complicated story for Dolby Atmos. You can technically create a Dolby Atmos track out of just about any original audio source. But how good that Dolby Atmos experience will be depends some on the source material and some on the budget for the production. The more audio tracks one has to work with, the more creative freedom is enabled. But in this day of AI and computer-based audio processing, some pretty incredible stuff can be created using limited original audio resources. So again, not all Dolby Atmos is equally impressive or even good. But if someone takes the time to do it, a Dolby Atmos audio track can be created and delivered for older films. Zach Harris writes, do you think that there will come a point in the future where TV manufacturers start focusing more on their audio for their TV lineups? It stands to reason that one day there will come a point where TV picture quality hits diminishing returns, and there won't be much more to entice customers to upgrade with anymore. Focusing on premium, enhanced audio systems might be one remedy to help attract people to purchase new sets, especially when many people just end up using their TV speakers anyway. What are your thoughts on this? Thanks for writing in, Zach. You know, I don't know if there's anyone out there who loves getting out the old crystal ball and peering into the future more than I. But here are my thoughts on this. First, I think we're further away from reaching such display nirvana that there's so little room left for improvement. I think the next 10 years at least are gonna see more exciting picture quality improvements. We've got ongoing work on electroluminescent quantum dots, or so-called QDEL displays, and there's ongoing work on phosphorescent OLED or FOLED display technology, both of which could represent some substantial improvements in picture quality. I think processing is only going to get better as AI and computing power advances. I think that as bandwidth limitations start lifting, there's an opportunity for one day getting uncompressed video delivery, and that will be a game changer. All of that to say, I don't really see the premise that picture quality hits such a wall that all that's left to entice folks to buy a new TV is improvements in audio quality. Also, the TV business will continue to thrive just by nature of the fact that tech eventually dies. Far more folks buy new TVs because their old TV breaks. The number of TVs sold to upgraders pales in comparison from what I'm told. But I think the real impediments to improved sound quality in TVs are a combination of 1, the laws of physics, and 2, consumer preferences, at least here in North America. Here's what I mean by that. Despite all the advances that have been made in digital signal processing, digital amplification, and transducer materials, the stuff that speakers are made out of, all of that hasn't been enough to overcome the fact that sound is just moving air, and that moving air sounds best when it's aimed at our ears. Also, to sound their best, transducers, or speakers, need physical space. Consumers have voted against elaborate onboard TV audio systems over and over again. Remember when Sony bookended some of its TVs with flat panel speakers? This design was not warmly received, which is why Sony quit doing it. Likewise, super bulky TVs don't seem to sell as well as thin and light TVs. Bottom line is, the vast majority of consumers are just fine with good enough when it comes to sound. And if they want excellent sound, they're usually willing to jump through some hoops and make some sacrifices to get it. So that's why I do not see audio improvements replacing video improvements as the compelling reason to buy a TV in the future. I'm not saying I think that's how it should be, mind you, I just think that's how it is. No one would love to see more premium audio from a TV than me. Jolyon Watts writes, what should I do with an old TV? Well, if it's an older CRT TV and it's in decent shape, I'd look into selling it. You'd be shocked by how much money old CRT TVs are going for these days, mostly because of a rapid retro gaming fan base. If it's an older LCD TV, well, again, you could try selling it for a few bucks. You never know who might be willing to take it off your hands and put it in their garage or toss it in their RV. You could also try giving it away if it's decent enough to use, but you can't get any money out of it. Sometimes underfunded schools and other institutions can make good use of an older TV that still has some life in it. Or if nobody seems to want it, you can hire someone to pick it up and recycle it, or you can haul it down to your local waste management or recycling company and dispose of it there. Anything that prevents it from going into a landfill. Kim Strom writes in saying they're ready to upgrade from their Hisense U9G and they're considering an upgrade to a Hisense U8N, but they're also enticed by OLED and considering the LG G4 or G3. They watch a lot of sports, hockey specifically, and adding to the consideration, they're interested in upgrading in size too, from 65 inches to either 77 or 85. So first off, Kim, thanks for writing in. Now, the first thing that jumps out to me here is that you're looking at upgrading to a 77 or 85. And with OLED, the bigger you go, the more you have to pay, but like exponentially more. The upgrade fee for larger OLEDs is considerably higher than the upgrade to a larger LCD-based TV. So if cost were no object, I'd say get the biggest LG G3 or G4 that you can. But cost is, and I think should be, a consideration for most folks. I'd say if you have your heart set on an OLED, consider getting a 77 or 83-inch LG C3 or C4 OLED. That will get you the OLED picture quality in a larger screen and help keep the costs down. Also, the processing in the C3 and C4 is pretty outstanding, and that better processing will help keep your broadcast TV signal looking as good as it can at those larger screen sizes. For bang for your buck though, there's just no denying that the Hisense U8N will give you some amazing picture quality. A big upgrade from your U9G for sure. And you'll be able to get to that 85-inch screen size without taking out a second mortgage on your house. It will also be brighter than the OLEDs if you need that. And you don't have to be concerned about wearing down the OLEDs if you watch hours and hours of hockey every day. You also mentioned being confused by the message that your U9G was giving you about 60 Hertz. I just want to mention that's about the refresh rate of the source signal and not the refresh rate of your TV. If you want me to get into that a little bit more, feel free to email me back. Joseph Green writes, help, I'm in picture mode jail. I have an LG QNED85, an Apple TV, and a Panasonic disc player. I want to adjust the picture mode settings so that I can get the best, most accurate picture. The problem is they all have their own separate picture settings. The Apple TV has Dolby Vision, the LG of course has all kinds of picture modes, and so does the Panasonic. Do they combine when you use them, or does one override the other depending on what you use? How do I just set it and forget it? Hey, Joseph, so the best thing that you can do with the Apple TV, in my opinion, is not to let the Apple TV force Dolby Vision on your television. Some people like that look, but not everyone is a fan of how it makes non-Dolby Vision native content look. I turned that setting off, and then I set the Apple TV to match the frame rate and dynamic range of the content source. I wouldn't use any of the picture modes on your Panasonic unless you find they look better than using your LG's picture modes alone. And this brings up a good message for everyone to hear. Your TV is going to apply processing to the signal that your source sends it, be it an Apple TV, disc player, NVIDIA Shield, or whatever. Whether that signal has had processing applied already or not, their TV does not know the difference. Sometimes if you have a TV that isn't all that advanced, letting your source device do some processing might help, but more often than not, the picture processor in your TV is going to be significantly better than whatever is in that source device. And since most TVs can't undo processing that's already been done, that means it's going to apply processing to processing. And that doesn't always make for the best result. And Joseph, on your LG, if you really want the most accurate picture, then filmmaker mode is the mode to go with. But check my video on filmmaker mode because not everyone likes that with its default settings. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Keep those questions coming to youasked@digitaltrends.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. And until then, here's 2 other videos I think you might like. Oh boy, poor writing, Caleb.